Some of these songs were banned from radio. Some were recorded in one take, and at least one was made by a man who had nothing left to lose. The 1980s didn't just give us great R&B. It gave us songs that said the things people were afraid to say out loud. Songs that changed careers. 12 songs. 12 moments that defined a decade. Stay with us, because number 1 will stop you in your tracks. Number 12, Atlantic Starr, Secret Lovers, 1986. You know that feeling when a song knows too much about your life? That is exactly what Secret Lovers does to you.
Taking this crazy chance to be all alone.
The moment that bass line drops, something inside you goes quiet. You stop what you are doing. You lean in. This song knows things about you that you never told it.
We both know that we should.
Atlantic Starr recorded this for the A&M label in 1986. The song was produced by James Anthony Carmichael, who was known for his smooth, polished touch. The lyrics are simple, but they cut deep. Two people who are deeply in love but cannot be together in public.
Not be together, 'cause if we found out.
One of them, or maybe both, belongs to someone else. Sharon Bryant's vocal delivery carries the weight of every secret that love has ever kept.
We could mess up both our happy homes.
The song climbed to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and hit the top of the R&B charts. It became the anthem for a feeling that millions of people had, but nobody was brave enough to name out loud. Here is something most people do not know. Sharon Bryant actually left the group shortly after this song became a hit. There was a lot of tension behind the scenes about creative direction and personal dynamics.
As soon as I look at you, it'll show on my face.
The voice you hear on that record, the one that made this song legendary, was gone from the group almost as fast as the song rose to the top.
Then they'll know that we've been loving each other.
Another member, Barbara Weathers, stepped in and Atlantic Starr kept going. But that original vocal, that was lightning in a bottle that never came back.
We can't let them know. No, no, no.
Secret Lovers gets remembered as a guilty pleasure song. People classify it as cheating music, and that label has followed it ever since. But that is unfair.
We can't leave a trace.
This song is really about the pain of impossible love, and the music is far more sophisticated than people give it credit for. Because it got categorized and dismissed, deeper listeners moved on and left it behind. It deserves a second look, a serious one.
Secret lovers.
Hold on, because number 11 is about to remind you that sometimes the boldest R&B moments came from women who refused to stay quiet. Number 11, the Pointer Sisters, Slow Hand. Close your eyes and think back to 1981. Women in R&B were expected to be sweet, expected to be grateful, expected to wait. The Pointer Sisters walked into a room full of those expectations, looked around, and said no thank you. Slow Hand was a revolution disguised as a love song. The song was written by Michael Clark and John Bettis and produced by Richard Perry for Planet Records. Ruth Pointer delivered the vocal, and she sang it like a woman who had been patient long enough and was done pretending otherwise. The lyric is straightforward. She wants a patient, attentive partner. No rush, no drama, just presence and care. The song peaked at number 2 pop and number 7 on the R&B charts. For a song with a message this direct, that was a cultural earthquake. The Pointer Sisters were actually considered a pop crossover act by the time this record came out. Some purist R&B listeners did not fully claim them, but Slow Hand proved that great soul writing has no borders. Ruth's vocal stripped everything back to bare emotion, and it connected with every kind of listener regardless of genre labels. Because the Pointer Sisters had so many hits across so many different sounds, from funk to rock to pop, this record gets lost in the catalog shuffle. People remember Jump for My Love or I'm So Excited, but Slow Hand was their deepest moment, the one that required the most courage. That tends to be the one that gets forgotten first. Stay right there because number 10 is going to take you somewhere gentler, and sometimes gentle hits the hardest.
All right, quick pause in the countdown because I need to say this from the heart. If these R&B picks are hitting you, if they're bringing back memories, late night vibes, old playlists, and that feeling you can't explain, then please subscribe to Sexual 69 right now. Not just for you, but because it genuinely helps this channel survive and grow. Every subscribe is like you telling YouTube, yes, this music matters. Keep this kind of content alive. It pushes these forgotten songs back into the light, helps more real R&B lovers find the channel, and lets me keep making deeper, better countdowns for you. So if you want more lists like this, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and drop a comment with the one R&B song that raised you. Let's bring these classics back together.
Every story you see here takes hours of digging, piecing together history, and bringing forgotten moments back to life. If you'd like to support that work, you can become a channel member. It's just the cost of a cup of coffee, but it helps us keep these stories alive, and for that, we're grateful. Number 10, Force MD's Tender Love.
Here I lay all alone.
There are love songs that make you feel romantic, and then there are love songs that make you feel safe. Tender Love is the second kind.
Toss and turn, longing for some of your.
When those harmonies wrap around you in the opening bars, it feels like someone put a warm hand on your shoulder and said, everything is going to be all right. That is a rare and precious thing in music.
Tender love, I'm waiting.
Tender Love appeared on the Crush Groove soundtrack in 1985, released through Warner Brothers Records. It was produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, two of the most important producers of the entire decade, who were already building the sound that would define Janet Jackson's career.
For the right moment.
The song is about offering complete and devoted love to someone who needs it. No games, no ego, just warmth and commitment. It hit number 10 pop and gave street corner harmony group Vocal Tradition a brand new pulse for the 1980s.
Come so I can thank you for all the tender love.
Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis wrote and produced this track during the same creative period when they were building the Flight Time Studios empire.
Give it to me. Tender love.
The fact that a group of guys from Staten Island who started out singing on the streets ended up with one of the defining Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis productions of 1985 is one of the most beautiful underdog stories in the decade's R&B history.
Love so tender.
The Crush Groove film connected this song to a moment in time, and when that moment passed, the song got filed away with the soundtrack rather than recognized as a standalone masterpiece.
Pulling me close to you. Baby,
Force MD's never quite broke through to mainstream superstar status despite this record. The song deserved a longer life than the film it came from.
surrender. Candles they light.
We are moving to number 9, and this one is about a voice so smooth it felt like velvet on a cold night. Number 9, Freddie Jackson, Rock Me Tonight. Freddie Jackson had one of those voices that sounded like it had already been in 3 relationships before you even finished your first conversation with it. Deep, warm, knowing. Rock Me Tonight did not ask for your attention. It assumed it already had it. And it was right. This was Freddie Jackson's debut single, released on Capitol Records in 1985, produced by Paul Lawrence. The song went straight to number 1 on the R&B charts and stayed there for 6 weeks. 6 consecutive weeks at the top as a first single. That almost never happens. The lyric is an invitation, confident but not aggressive, direct but not cold. It sits right in that sweet spot between passion and tenderness that very few artists ever find. Jackson became one of the defining quiet storm voices of the era almost overnight. Before Freddie Jackson became a recording artist, he was a background vocalist and backup singer working behind other people. He spent years supporting other performers before getting his own chance. When Rock Me Tonight finally gave him that spotlight, he stepped into it like he had been waiting his whole life, because he had. That kind of patience shows up in the performance. You can hear it. Freddie Jackson's career is one of the most criminally overlooked in 1980s R&B. He never crossed over to massive pop success, so younger listeners who discovered R&B through pop radio never found him. His name faded while lesser-voiced artists with bigger promotional budgets stayed visible. But in the black community, especially among people of a certain age, his name still means everything. Number 8 is coming up, and it belongs to a young man who sounded 40 when he was barely 21. Number 8, Levert, Casanova.
I ain't much on Casanova.
If confidence had a sound in 1987, it was this record. Casanova walked in like it owned the room, sat down at the best table, and ordered for everybody.
And Romeo ain't never been friends.
Gerald Levert was 21 years old, and he sounded like a man twice that age, lived in, unshakable, utterly at ease. You either loved it or you envied it. Most people did both.
Just see how much I really love it.
Casanova was released on Atlantic Records in 1987, co-written and co-produced by Mark Gordon and Reggie Calloway. It shot to number 1 on the R&B charts and showed the world what new Jack Soul was about to become.
Sing it to you time and time again. Oh,
the groove was tight and modern, but the soul underneath was classic. Gerald Levert carried his father Eddie Levert's legacy from the legendary OJs in his voice without copying it. He took what was handed down and made it entirely his own. Levert was founded by Gerald Levert and his brother Sean, along with childhood friend Mark Gordon. They were essentially self-made, pushing their demo tapes until someone finally listened. Gerald's father, Eddie Levert, was a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee. Growing up in that shadow could have crushed another artist. Instead, it sharpened Gerald into one of the most naturally gifted vocalists of his generation. We lost him far too soon in 2002. He was only 40 years old.
every man deserves a good woman.
Casanova gets remembered as a fun party record when it is actually a brilliantly constructed soul performance. Because it was so easy and enjoyable to listen to, critics dismissed its craft.
And I want you to be my wife.
They heard the confidence and missed the skill. That is a mistake that history should correct. Gerald Levert was the real thing.
Time is so much better spent, baby.
Hold tight, because number 7 literally gave a whole genre its name. You are about to find out how. Number 7, Midnight Star, Slow Jam, 1983.
I was all alone. I was feeling.
Think about this for a moment. Before 1983, nobody used those two words together like that. Slow jam was not yet a phrase that meant a category, a feeling, a way of experiencing music.
I need someone to.
Then Midnight Star put out this record and changed everything. The song named itself after what it was and then became the definition of it.
Lift my spirits up.
Midnight Star was a group out of Kentucky, which already tells you something about how music moves, because nobody was expecting the Midwest to deliver this particular kind of heat. They released Slow Jam on Solar Records in 1983.
So I dropped in on a day.
The production was silky and measured, no rush, no tricks, just a groove that moved like warm water down a slow river. It reached number 2 on the R&B charts and became the template for an entire subgenre. Every late-night radio DJ from New York to Los Angeles used this record as a weapon. The term slow jam entered American vocabulary through this record. Before Midnight Star codified it, people said love songs or ballads or quiet storm music. After Slow Jam, everyone knew exactly what the words meant and exactly what kind of night they were describing. That is cultural ownership of the highest order. Midnight Star made funky records and up-tempo tracks too, and those sides of their catalog often overshadowed their slower moments in retrospective coverage. The fact that they essentially invented a genre name and people do not connect the name back to them is one of the great credit failures in R&B history. Number 6 is coming up, and we are about to unpack one of the most controversial songs on this entire list. You were warned in the hook. Here it comes. Number 6, Prince, Do Me Baby. Right at the beginning of this video, we told you that at least one of these songs was made by a man who had nothing left to lose. This is that song. Do Me Baby was recorded in exile, not geographical exile, but emotional exile. Prince made this track alone in his own studio with no band, no producer, just himself and a piano and something burning inside him that had to come out. Do Me Baby appeared on the 1981 album Controversy, released through Warner Brothers. Prince wrote it, performed every single instrument on it, and produced it alone. The song stretches past 5 minutes in length, way too long for mainstream radio by the standards of the time. Radio played it anyway. It went to number 1 on the R&B charts in 1982 and became the most intimate and emotionally exposed moment on an album full of provocative statements. At its core, the song is about complete surrender, giving yourself over to someone without reservation. Earlier in this video, we told you that some of these songs were banned from radio. Do Me Baby was one of them, at least on certain stations in certain markets. And the story behind that is layered. Some people say the banning was purely about the lyrical content, that the song was considered too sexually suggestive for broadcast, and on the surface, that seems straightforward. But here is where it gets complicated. In interviews over the years, it has been said that some of the resistance came from a broader discomfort with Prince as an artist, a black man in full creative control of his own sexuality and his own artistic vision. That made some people in the industry very uncomfortable. There are different versions of the story depending on who you ask. Some radio programmers said it was a broadcast standards decision. Others have suggested it was more personal than that. Prince himself rarely discussed it directly, but he was famously aware of the politics of how black artists were treated by the corporate music system.
Kiss me all over.
His later battles with Warner Brothers, battles that became public and intense in the 1990s, did not start from nowhere. The seeds were planted in moments exactly like this one. What the pushback actually did was give the song a mystique it might not have had otherwise. When people heard it was being kept off the air in certain places, they sought it out harder. The underground reputation of Do Me Baby grew because of the resistance to it, and that mystique carried the song forward through decades when many records from that era faded completely. The broader reflection here is important. The 1980s were a decade when black artists were generating enormous wealth for labels and radio networks and simultaneously being told what they were and were not allowed to say. The tension between creative freedom and corporate control was real, and it was ongoing. Do Me Baby sits at the center of that tension. It is not just a beautiful song, it is a statement about who gets to express desire freely and who does not. Prince went on to fight that battle publicly for the rest of his career. He wrote "slave" on his face. He changed his name to a symbol. He refused to back down. But in 1982, with this record, the fight was already happening. You just had to know where to look. Because Prince had so many legendary records: Purple Rain, Little Red Corvette, When Doves Cry, this one disappears into an enormous catalog. But within that catalog, Do Me Baby might be the most purely emotional performance he ever gave, the most unguarded, the most human. People who only know Prince from his hits have missed something profound. Number 5 is about to take us somewhere timeless, a record so deep that hip-hop spent 30 years trying to sample its way back inside it. Number 5, the Isley Brothers, Between the Sheets, 1983.
Hey girl, ain't no mystery.
By the time 1983 arrived, the Isley Brothers had been making music for 25 years. 25 years! And they still made every other act on the chart sound like they were just getting started.
As far as I can see,
Between the Sheets did not compete with anyone. It existed on its own level, in its own atmosphere, moving at its own pace. Ronald Isley did not beg on this record. He did not rush. He simply described what love looks like when it is completely honest and completely at peace with itself.
keep you here, all laying next to me.
Between the Sheets was released on T-Neck Records through CBS in 1983, produced by the Isley Brothers themselves.
Sharing our love.
Ronald Isley's lead vocal sits over one of the most hypnotic grooves of the decade, a guitar-driven, slow-rolling production that never overreaches and never apologizes. The song was a top 10 R&B hit on release.
Between the sheets. Say,
But its second life as one of the most sampled recordings in hip-hop history is where it truly became immortal. Biggie Smalls built Warning from it. R. Kelly used it. Aaliyah's Age Ain't Nothing But A. Number carries its DNA. The list goes on and on. The reason this song gets sampled so relentlessly is because the groove is essentially perfect. There is no waste in it. Every element is exactly where it should be, at exactly the right weight.
feel your love surrounding me. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
When hip-hop producers went looking for something to build on in the late 1980s and 1990s, they kept coming back to this track because it was structurally ideal for sampling. The Isley Brothers accidentally built the foundation that the next generation of artists would stand on. Ironically, the sampling has both preserved and obscured this song. Many younger listeners know the interpolated versions, the hip-hop records built on this foundation, but have never gone back to hear the original.
Making sweet love between.
The sample became more famous than the source. That is a strange kind of legacy, but it is real. The people who know this original truly know it, treat it like sacred text.
The sheets. Hey girl.
Number 4 is going to surprise you. It is a song from the biggest selling album in history, and it is the one that almost nobody talks about. Number 4, Michael Jackson, The Lady in My Life.
There'll be no darkness tonight.
You know Thriller, you know Billie Jean, you know Beat It, but do you know the last track on that album, the final song? Because that is where Michael Jackson took off the performance clothes, put down the showmanship, and just stood in front of you as a man with something to say to someone he loved. No spectacle, just truth.
Will shine.
The Lady in My Life was written by Rod Temperton and produced by Quincy Jones for Epic Records in 1982. Quincy made a deliberate choice to strip the production bare. No tricks, no elaborate arrangement, just space for Michael's voice to live in.
Just put your trust.
The lyric is a quiet and complete declaration of devotion, simple, honest, and deeply felt. On the album that generated Billie Jean, Beat It, Wanna Be Startin' Something, and Human Nature, this quiet moment at the end is the one that many serious listeners consider the emotional peak of the whole project.
In my heart.
Rod Temperton, the man who wrote this song, also wrote Thriller, Rock With You, and Off the Wall, 3 of the biggest Michael Jackson records in history. But many music historians consider The Lady in My Life to be his deepest and most personal piece of songwriting in that catalog. The fact that it was buried as the closing track on the most commercially successful album of all time means millions of people hit stop before they ever found it. Because Thriller was a spectacle on a scale no album had ever achieved before. Everything on that record existed in the shadow of its commercial and visual dominance. The quietest, most human moment on the album had no music video, no single release, no radio push. It just sat there at the end, waiting for the listeners patient enough to reach it. Most people never did. Number 3 is coming up, and this woman walked into 1988 with nothing to prove and everything to give. Number 3. Anita Baker, Giving You the Best That I Got.
Ain't there something I can give in exchange for it?
There are artists who perform love, and there are artists who mean it. Anita Baker never performed anything. Every note she ever sang came from a place that felt like lived experience, like she was not interpreting a lyric, but remembering something real.
Everything you give to me, read my mind.
Giving you the best that I got does not dazzle you. It does something much harder. It makes you believe every single word.
Feel just fine when I think my peace of mind is.
This record was released on Elektra Records in 1988, produced by Anita Baker herself along with Michael J. Powell. The production is restrained and elegant chamber music sensibility dressed in soul clothing. The song is a promise, not a performance.
Out of reach. The scales are sometimes.
It says, "I am not perfect, but everything I have is yours." It hit number 1 on both the pop and R&B charts simultaneously, won the Grammy Award for Best R&B Song, and the album it came from sold over 8 million copies. In a year crowded with massive records, nothing touched this.
Times unbalanced, and you bear the weight of all that has to.
Anita Baker fought hard for creative control of her recordings and her image, at a time when the industry was resistant to giving that kind of power to artists, especially women.
I hope you see that you can lean on.
The restraint and sophistication of this record was entirely her decision. She could have gone bigger, flashier, more commercial. She chose depth over volume, and the world rewarded her for it in a way that validated every difficult decision she had made along the way.
Me, and together we can calm the stormy sea.
Anita Baker is not forgotten, but she is underestimated. Her catalog gets described as smooth or easy listening in ways that minimize how technically demanding her vocal work is. This song in particular requires a control and an emotional honesty that most singers cannot access. The simplicity is deceptive. There is nothing easy about it.
and so unselfishly.
Number 2 is a song that lived a quiet life for 17 years before one artist picked it up and turned it into something that shook walls. Number 2, Luther Vandross, A House Is Not a Home.
A chair is still a chair.
Burt Bacharach wrote this song in 1964. Dionne Warwick sang it beautifully. But when Luther Vandross got his hands on it in 1981, he did not cover the song. He broke it open. He took a quiet ballad and turned it into a full portrait of loneliness so detailed, so specific, so searingly honest that you did not just feel sad listening to it. You felt understood. Luther Vandross recorded this for Epic Records in 1981 as part of his debut album, Never Too Much. The version runs past 7 minutes. 7 minutes. That is almost unheard of for a ballad debut. But producer M. Tume and Luther himself refused to cut it short because every second of it earned its place. The vocal is a journey through loneliness, memory, longing, and the particular kind of ache that comes from loving someone who is no longer there. It did not chart as a single, but it became the record that told every serious R&B listener who this man was and what he was capable of. Luther's studio sessions were famously intense. He would do take after take until every emotional detail was exactly where he wanted it. Backing vocalists who worked with him talk about how he would stop a session mid-take, not because a note was wrong, but because the feeling was not right. He was chasing something interior and invisible, and he would not stop until he caught it. On this record, he caught it completely. Because so many people only know Luther Vandross from his hits of the mid and late 1980s. Here and Now, Stop to Love, Never Too Much as a chorus. Those records are brilliant, but they show you the surface. A House Is Not a Home shows you what was underneath all of it. The depth and the hurt and the absolute mastery. People who discovered Luther late missed the foundation that everything else was built on. You have been waiting for this. Number 1, the song that began as nothing and ended up meaning everything.
All right, quick pause in the countdown because I need to say this from the heart. If these R&B picks are hitting you, if they're bringing back memories, late night vibes, old playlists, and that feeling you can't explain, then please subscribe to Sexual 69 right now. Not just for you, but because it genuinely helps this channel survive and grow. Every subscribe is like you telling YouTube, yes, this music matters. Keep this kind of content alive. It pushes these forgotten songs back into the light, helps more real R&B lovers find the channel, and lets me keep making deeper, better countdowns for you. So if you want more lists like this, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and drop a comment with the one R&B song that raised you. Let's bring these classics back together.
Every story you see here takes hours of digging, piecing together history, and bringing forgotten moments back to life. If you'd like to support that work, you can become a channel member. It's just the cost of a cup of coffee, but it helps us keep these stories alive, and for that, we're grateful. Number 1, Marvin Gaye, Sexual Healing. This is not just the best sensual ballad of the 1980s. This is one of the most important recordings in the entire history of R&B music, and the story of how it came to exist is almost as powerful as the music itself. Because Marvin Gaye made this record from nothing, not from a studio in Los Angeles or New York, not from a place of success or security. He made it from exile, from brokenness, from a man who had been brought to his knees and was fighting his way back to standing. By By 1982, Marvin Gaye was living in Ostend, Belgium, far from America, far from the industry, far from the chaos of his personal life and his financial disasters. He had fled a tax debt, a bitter divorce, and a public image that had collapsed. He was rebuilding himself in a cold European city where nobody knew his name. And in that isolation, working with Belgian musician and producer Odell Brown, he recorded Sexual Healing. It was released on Columbia Records, and it did something almost no other record in history has done. It spent 10 consecutive weeks at #1 on the R&B charts. It won the first 2 Grammy Awards ever presented in R&B categories. It gave Marvin Gaye the biggest commercial hit of his entire career, and he was dead 18 months later. The drum machine groove on Sexual Healing was cold and mechanical by design. That was a deliberate choice. Marvin wanted the contrast between the clinical, almost robotic rhythm beneath and the warm, deeply human vocal on top. He believed that tension was what made the record feel urgent, like something human and alive fighting to survive inside something mechanical and cold. When you listen again knowing that, the song takes on a completely different meaning.
Sexual healing, baby, is good for me.
Marvin Gaye returned to the United States after the success of Sexual Healing and moved into his parents' home in Los Angeles. He was trying to find his footing again. He was performing again, talking about new music.
Sexual healing is something that's good for.
And then on April 1st, 1984, one day before his 45th birthday, he was gone. The world lost him before he could complete whatever was supposed to come next.
Whenever blue teardrops are falling.
Sexual Healing is not underrated. It is not forgotten. It lives exactly where it belongs, at the center of everything. But what people sometimes miss is that this was not a confident record made by a man at the peak of his powers.
And my emotional stability is deep.
It was a desperate record made by a man who needed music to save him. The healing in the title was not metaphorical. Marvin Gaye literally needed that song to heal. You hear it in every note.
Let me. There is something I can do.
You hear the need, the gratitude, the relief of still being alive and still being able to create. That is why it has never stopped playing, because real survival sounds like that, and we recognize it even when we cannot name it.